What's up? My name is Ken Dumbo, the MC with the sauce. Don't forget to subscribe to J. Cool.
Thank you, Chairman of Community. I want to associate myself with what has been said, especially what our sister President Samia Suluhu has just mentioned. But before that, let me raise a couple of questions maybe to guide us. I don't know if that is possible. One, is there anybody among us who did not see this coming? I for one, I saw it coming to be where we are now. I saw it coming because I did not see who was taking charge of the process, who was listening, who was trying to provide any kind of guidance as to what we should be doing from one thing or one day to another. And by this, I want to also ask, as the East African community, what did we want from the beginning? Or what did we do about that? What are we doing now? And what do we want to do for where we want to go? Because exactly like President Sami has mentioned, if it is talking about problems and defining them, and I think we have been very eloquent. We have talked about all kinds of things. But when do we match what we are saying and what we are doing so that we get to what we want? When do we come to that? I haven't seen it. President, I asked last time in our meeting, the last summit, where is East African community, or does it exist? And exist for what? By the way, even now the person or the country we are talking about is not represented as we are discussing. And it is supposed to be, the country is supposed to be part of East Africa, but nowhere to be represented. So I'm not sure what bearing what we are discussing has on what happens in the process of finding a solution in this country. I'll move on. The conflict that was created from the time we had the East African community get involved in trying to help in Congo, and later on when the East African force was trying its best and we are seeing progress, Tshisekedi decided they are not doing what he wanted and went to SADC. SADC agreed they would come and do what he wanted and sent everybody packing. And that we complied and kept quiet. What really did we expect to come out of this? Now, worse still, I think even in East Africa itself, ourselves, maybe we have different understanding of what the problem is, and we have never come together to agree or even disagree and find a way to come together finally to do what we ought to do to deal with this problem. Or we simply decided, each country, to move on its own with a different agenda arising out of involvement or whatever in Congo, and that was enough. If your interests were catered for by Tshisekedi, that was fine, even if the others' interests or concerns were not taken care of. You can imagine, therefore, what chaos comes out of that kind of situation. We are, on one hand, assuming or pretending we are coming together over an issue and trying to find a solution, while at the same time, each country is pulling in its own direction, different from the others. This is the fact of the matter. Now, but even if we were doing everything right, all of us, nothing is going to come out of it until those mainly concerned are also part of it and participating and contributing to the success of the process through which they are getting the support. But if the parties decide or accept to be manipulated, because, and by the way, that's exactly what happened, and I think in Congo, there are experts for doing that. They would go to one party and promise them something, and then they would decide to keep quiet about what is obviously going to result into problems like we are seeing now. Or, like he did, he didn't want East African community because they were not doing things the way he wanted, even if it was not right. He got rid of them and he decided to bring in SADC. SADC was, without any question, coming to assist Tshisekedi to fight alongside FDLR, these murderers of our people here in this country, to fight against mercenaries, and to have Burundi on ethnic political basis decide to support Tshisekedi in whatever endeavor, including exactly doing what those murderers did to our people and what they are doing in Eastern Congo. They have displaced people, they have killed people, they have persecuted them on a daily basis for who they are. We have refugees here who have been here for the last 20 plus years, just dislocated from Congo and sent to Rwanda because they say these are ethnic Tutsis and therefore they belong to Rwanda, they don't belong there. And everybody is around. I don't know how many entities we have in Congo, honestly. We have MONUSC, we have some DRC, we have mercenaries, we have Burundi, we have FDLR that has joined them, and everybody is there watching this thing, and we pretend it's like we don't understand what has been going on for all these years. And then when things like this of last week erupted, we behave like we are surprised or we are concerned about humanitarian crisis, about this and that. Isn't persecuting and killing people and displacing them part of that humanitarian concern? So, as East Africans, we sit here and then do what about it? For the last 2 days, on Monday and today this morning, I spoke with the President of South Africa, who sought me out to speak with me on this matter because of their involvement in Eastern Congo. And he's also there pretending to be playing a peacemaker role. And he has a force that has been fighting alongside FDLR and has been fighting the M23 on the instructions of Tshisekedi, because these are people who are not supposed to be in Congo, that these are from Rwanda, or the M23 are not Rwandans, please. These are Congolese, and one time he accepts it, then another time he says no, part of it is yes, and then the other part is from Rwanda, and these are he keeps on going. And how do we, leaders of our own countries, accept this to go on forever and just accept that we shall be manipulated by Tshisekedi or whoever is supporting him? And South Africa dares even issue threats about what is likely to happen after that, and so on and so forth. Of course, we will see what threats they are talking about. Maybe they should have done that exactly for which they have been issuing threats. They should have done it to clean up the mess in Eastern Congo, or to fight back those who have been trying to clean up the mess. So then you have the whole international community just confused. They talked about Rwanda, they talked about the Nairobi process. Honestly, even here, maybe you will help me understand what all this means. The processes became an end in themselves. And the people leading these processes became more important than the results of the processes. The Nairobi process became a Uhuru process. Then the Rwanda process, it's like you can't say anything that will displease President Lorenzo. Definitely, this does not help deal with such a serious matters as we are faced with today. That in the end, just because they can't be addressed, we have such a situation that, like we have now. And if anybody, and above all, I don't understand how Tshisekedi keeps thinking that he will resolve the problems to do with rights of people militarily. Kill them, shoot them, bring in forces that are ready to help, like especially Burundi. Well, I don't know whether that has been helpful for the last few days or weeks. They have been doing that. So I want us to, Chairman, Your Excellencies, I want us, whatever we are saying and whatever we intend to do, we capture the context rightly and then proceed based on that, and maybe we can get somewhere. But otherwise, if we keep saying good things, saying that, and to each other being nice, and then each one fulfilling their own interests other than others' interests, the common interests we have as East Africans, then I don't see how we are going to contribute effectively to finding a solution. But really, to have even had East African community expelled from Eastern Congo and everybody complied and then there was quiet, it's as if it was normal or that is okay. Everything dictated by the country or the person we are trying to help. I didn't understand that. And that's where we are now. That's how we are here, where we are. So let me maybe for now stop here. I would really want to hear advice of others, but I think it's not just a plaything. It's not. It's a serious matter, evidently, because it consumes people's lives. And the other day, 2-3 days ago, we lost people. There was a lot of sharing from Eastern Congo, from Goma, and killed a dozen people and injured hundreds. We will definitely take care of that. There's no question about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks for tuning in to JQ News. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the latest updates on tech, politics, and everything in between. Until next time, stay cool.
What's up? My name is Ken Dumbo, the MC with the sauce. Don't forget to subscribe to JQ.
You know, the history of what we now know as the Democratic Republic of Congo is a history that is long and has several twists and turns. And it is important to contextualize that history so that we are able to understand and appreciate what is happening now. The Congo Free State, as we know it today, was established by King Leopold of the Belgians. That is not to say that there were no African populations with over 450 nationalities. And we will also remember that it's the same King Leopold of the Belgians who was the force behind the Berlin Conference in 1884 and 1885, during which the current boundaries that we know of African states were established. But during that same period that Leopold was establishing the Congo Free State, the Germans under Bismarck in 1880 had also established a presence in what is present-day Tanzania, but was then Tanganyika, and in what was then Rwanda-Urundi, which we now know separately as Rwanda and Burundi. When the Germans lost the war, what is normally described as the First World War, but I prefer to call the First European Tribal War, what then happened is that Rwanda and Burundi were made to be trust territories of Belgium. So the original sin in terms of the conflict that we see in DRC today was planted in those days, planted by King Leopold of the Belgians, reinforced in Berlin in 1884 and 1885. And there is a beautiful book that has been written by the Nigeria called Dekeye Adebayo in 2010, which is titled The Curse of Berlin, Africa After the Cold War. And it is important to have that history for us to appreciate what is now known as the conflict that is pitting Congo. Some say that the Rwandese are involved because the people that are fighting as M23 are of Tutsi stock, but they are Congolese. They come from around Kivu. The fact that a boundary was drawn by the colonialists and put them in a country that is now known as DRC, at one time was known as Zaire or Congo Kinshasa, does not make them Rwandese. So the M23 was formed deliberately because the people who are then christened as the Banyamulenge thought that they were being discriminated against. They thought that the Congolese administration in Kinshasa was telling them to go to Rwanda, which is not their country. And this is something that has been debated over time. In 1996, when the country was still known as Zaire, the former president of Tanzania, the late Julius Kambarage Nyerere, in 1996, when delivering a speech in New York under the Peace Academy, said that we must be very clear that the Banyamulenge are not Rwandese. The Banyamulenge or the Tutsi who are to be found or who are found in Kivu are Congolese. Because the colonialist border put them in DRC, Congo, and some in Tutsi, does not make them Rwandese. So the M23 was created deliberately for the purpose of protecting the interests of the Tutsis who are Congolese citizens. However, it must be understood that there have been accusations and counter-accusations, with the administration in Kinshasa saying that the Rwanda administration is aiding the M23. Rwanda, on her part, has said that because the war spills over into Rwanda occasionally, they are always on a defensive and sometimes in an offensive mode. And you will remember that when Felix Tshisekedi took over power, there was a time indeed when he visited Kigali and gave the Rwandese the right to move into the territory of Congo to deal with other rebel groups which were a threat to Rwanda, in the same way that he also did to the Ugandans. The fallout now is that diplomatically there is now a problem between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the accusations are that the Rwandese administration is using M23 to destabilize DRC and also to take resources. But I believe that if we are to look at the issue in an objective manner, this is not the time to apportion blame. This is the time to ask ourselves, how can we stabilize? And that will require, among other things, that all the combatants are called to a round table. The argument, for example, that comes from the Kinshasa administration that they cannot have a face-to-face meeting with M23 is without merit, because it is the M23 who are on the ground. And they are an organized force with a clear chain of command. Even if it is true that the Rwanda government has given them logistical support, that does not take away the fact that they are organized and that they say they are Congolese. And we will remember that numerous attempts have been made to stabilize DRC. Numerous attempts when it was still called Zaire, numerous attempts when it changed its name to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and there have been peace initiatives, the most prominent of which has been the peace initiative by President João Lourenço of Angola, which appears to have faltered. There was also the Nairobi Peace Initiative, and we will remember that at one time all the East African countries did sanction an African force to go and help the Congolese administration, and they expelled the East African force and invited SADC. It must be remembered that DRC is a member of 2 regional organizations, perhaps even 3. But the most prominent is that they are members of the East African community and members of SADC. And as we speak now in the year 2025, it is the SADC forces that are prominent in that area. Internationally, we also have the UN, MONUSCO, which has been there for a very long time. And this is not the first time that M23 have actually invaded Goma and occupied Goma. There was a time when they did, but the things have escalated in a manner that was unprecedented, with the consequence that the Kinshasa administration severed diplomatic ties and asked that the Rwandese ambassador winds up their diplomatic activities within 48 hours. It is in that context that the Kenyan President William Ruto, who is the current chair of the East African Community, then said, let us have an urgent meeting in order to resolve the problem. But from where I sit, such an urgent meeting will only be to stabilize and possibly call for a truce. But we've got to look at the long-term issues. I know others outside of the continent have also offered to mediate. President Erdogan of Turkey did offer to mediate, and that was immediately dismissed by the Congolese, which begs the question, how do we deal with the Congo problem in the context of the combatants who are present and who have demonstrated that they have sufficient firepower to overwhelm the Congolese forces? We talk much more about M23 and also talk about Banyamulenge, but remember that researchers tell us that there are anything between 100 and 120 armed groups, some of which are mercenaries and are involved with miners from different parts of the world. So that even if you negotiated with M23, what do you do with the other armed forces? From where I sit, and there are people who share the view that I take, you need a thorough examination of the situation in Congo. You need to have a conference which is an all-party meeting to look at mediation of the conflict in a proper manner. And I am of the view that all heads of state in East Africa should congregate. All heads of